Welcome to Black Man Lab. We are live on Monday. What is today? It is the 18th of January. These days are all rolling into one. Welcome, everybody. So glad that you are here with us this evening to have a great discussion around where do we go from here. We'll talk about emergency readiness and self-defense in these uncertain times. So we will have a great panel tonight. Before we get started with anything, I want to bring on my brother from another mother, my main man, Mawuli Davis, who is the co-founder of Black Man Lab, amongst many other things. But I want him to come on and welcome everybody in. Mawuli.
What's up, fam? How we doing, Black Man Lab? It's great to be back. Great to be able to plug in. Last week was the Queen's birthday, so we had to spend our focus and time and energy with her. Now we back in the saddle, ready to rock and roll. We always start with two fundamental things. First, the importance of centering ourselves and just sitting with this moment as brothers. And of course, now we also are encompassing our sisters. And so we just want to take a moment with all that's been going on. I want Brother Fred Parham to lead us in our ritual of centering ourselves and stillness. So, Brother Fred.
Great evening, Brother Mawuli, Joe, and Marty, man. It's good to see you, brothers. Just excited, man, to be in the midst tonight. And special salute on Dr. King Day. So excited about the panel. But towards centering, man, everybody kind of sit in a position that is comfortable and erect. And at this moment, you know, you just want to take a deep breath, 3, 2, 1, and exhale slowly, 3, 2, 1. And to the listener audience family, that is some of the best medicine on earth, free of charge. Back to you, Marty.
All right. And like Mawuli said, as we talk about being centered and being in a space ready to take on information, live and learn and love, part of that is we want to reach back and make sure that our ancestors are in the space as well. So I would like to do is, Mawuli, if you could bring the ancestors forward, that would be great.
Marty, we're going to do something a little different. We got Baba Kwame Kalimara here, one of our elders in the community, a spiritual leader, one of my spiritual leaders and teachers. And I just want to allow him to come forward to do a libation in his tradition.
Asante Sana for that invitation. Just as Fred had indicated, we needed to center ourselves with breath. Most of us know that libation is an invocation of spirit. Most of us know that invocation is to open ourselves up to ultimate reality, the creator that's known by many names. Most of us know that it is also to honor, respect, and revere our ancient African ancestors, both sheroes and heroes. Most of us know that it's also to acknowledge the power and essence of our ancestors, but know that we do all this work for our children. We do know that the words of power that have been used have been in this country, Ashe. We know that in Haiti, they use Aebobo. We know that the Akan do Insa. The point is that whether you're in the church saying amen, or so be it, or the power is, it is upon us to go ahead and access within ourselves the DNA of all of the positive attributes of our ancestors. So I want to say that let us, as we breathe, we recognize the blood that is within our bodies. We recognize the oxygen within our lungs. We recognize that this melding of this creates the energy for us to do the work that we have to do. We acknowledge that we are in a protracted war, protracted people's war, and so allow us to be able to see the best in ourselves. And it's important for us to acknowledge as brothers that there have been Shiro sisters who have led the wealth and wells of knowledge to give us new lenses to look at. we look at and recognize the intersectionality of race, class, and gender. We recognize that this intersection, interlocking system pressures has to be beat and defeated for us to be able to exercise our self-determination and human rights. It is our responsibility. It's our responsibility to put the planet back on its proper axis. So in so saying that, if those of us who are in the room would like to announce their ancient ancestors, both national and both in terms of your family, do that, because we know that we start meetings with all the family in the room.
Freddie Lee Parham, Sr.
Sylvester Williams, Sr.
Bobby Mari Osagyefo.
Joseph Barker Sr. Ben Barker. Martin Luther King and Coretta Scott King. Ashe.
Baba Chokwe Lumumba.
Ashe.
Marion Monegain.
Ashe. Mama Njiri Afghani.
Ashe.
Patrice Lumumba.
Ashe.
Ella Baker.
Ashe. Kwame Ture.
Steve Biko.
Ashe.
With that, we acknowledge that there are many more names that have not been called out, but they're within our minds and our spirit, and we recognize that they are the guiding principles in which we live. And so with that, we say, Eboho, Eboho, Ashe, Ashe, Antan, Ta, Wiso, Man, Asante Sana, Asante Sana. It is done. Thank you, my brothers.
Ashe. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Brothers and sisters, this is a very interesting Black Man Lab. And I'd like for us, if we could, to put it into some context. Last week, we had two tremendous scholars, Brother Dr. Greg Kamathi Carr, Dr. Ricky L. Jones, and that focus was really to help decipher and understand the historical roots and the current manifestations of white supremacy as we saw it manifest itself on January the 6th, as white domestic terrorists and insurgents took over the U.S. Capitol and engaged in a siege of the U.S. Capitol, which has been, without question, an unprecedented attack that we've not seen before. So today, as a part two of where do we go from here, we have our analysis of how serious of a situation this is. And one of the things that Jana and I and others have been discussing is that if they cannot protect their capital, if they cannot protect the United States Capitol, how are we safe in this space? And so the irony of us having this conversation on this Dr. King observance is that here we are so many years later, and the need for us to be able to defend ourselves, our families, and have a emergency plan and be prepared is a very, very real reality. And I'll end with this and then begin the introductions so that we can have complete context. The insurgents were encouraged by the President of the United States, congressmen. They were allowed by some officers to move the way they moved, and that the president that encouraged them have received more votes than any other presidential candidate to date. He got 74 million votes. So we have to be clear that the majority of white people in America voted for him, his agenda and ideology, which we saw in full effect on January 6th. This isn't a Republican or a Democrat conversation. This is the reality of the fragility of our existence in these, what they call yet to be United States. And with that, I like for to bring in our different speakers who will have different perspectives. I know Baba Akinyele Umoja is on grandfather duty, and so he's moving, and he may end up having to jump and run to the airport and do some things. So I like, if we could, to bring him in first. Dr. Umoja has written, we will shoot back, a look and analysis at the self-defense during the civil rights movement, Black Power movement, the new African liberation movement based out of Mississippi. And so he is a scholar of resistance and self-defense. And so with that, I'd like to bring Baba AK in to share his thoughts, his analysis of this moment, and the things that we should consider as we reflect upon historically what we've had to do in instances such as the one we find ourselves in today. So Baba AK, if you could unmute yourself.
Sate Sana, Mawuli, and I would like to say on behalf of the women, men, and youth of the Malcolm X Grassroots movement, I'd like to greet everybody with Freedom Land. I loved your introduction. It's right on point. I was thinking, I was listening to a video, YouTube video from T.I. last night, and he said, we're from the hood, and we always we know when we see a home invasion, oftentimes it's an inside job. And we know that, you know, people in the Congress, the police aided that invasion of the Capitol a few weeks ago. And I'm reminded of Baba Kwame and my comrade and now our ancestor, Chokwe Lumumba. He said that Black people are in a war. We might not be at war, but we in a war because war is being waged upon us. And so when we think about what we're seeing now, really, we're just becoming more and more aware of what's happening. This has been going on since the first Africans got here to this shore. And I'm thinking about the need for us to protect ourselves. I was thinking this morning that even before coming here, many of our ancestors during the Middle Passage, had to protect themselves on the coast of West and West Central Africa. Many of you heard the term Quilombo. It comes from those communities of people who reconstituted themselves after being dispersed to form vehicles of protection and self-defense. And that tradition continued to the Western Hemisphere, that we had our ancestors who escaped to the woods, to the swamps, to the remote area of the forests, and they reconstituted themselves to help defend and protect themselves. Those who were able to get away and go to the north and go to areas that was no longer slave territory, if you will. They had to form what they call vigilance communities because they were slave catchers who would come into our communities and snatch folks and try to bring them back. These slave catchers are also part of the same foundation that would now lead to police in our communities. So, it kind of goes way back. We've always had to protect ourselves. It's just a matter of how conscious we were of our reality. Even during the civil rights movement, it's appropriate on Dr. King's Day, celebration of his holiday. One of the things we talk about, and we will shoot back, is, when Dr. King is around, Dr. King was internationally known. And so the federal government had to make sure that there was protection around Dr. King. Because y'all know what happened when Dr. King was assassinated. America blew up. Our cities blew up. It was 125 urban disturbances throughout the United States. So there was usually a level of security around Dr. King that we provided and the community provided. But when, brothers and sisters like us, average everyday brothers and sisters, it was the people in our community, organizations like Let Us Make Man, who in our community form protection around folks. That's why you have groups like the Deacons for Defense. But even in every community, It'd be some brothers from the church. It'd be some brothers who were part of the lodge who would come together and they would protect folk in the community. It'd be them old sisters in the neighborhood who'd be packing too. So, you know, we always believed in some form of self-defense. It's only when we, you know, drink the Kool-Aid and we think this situation ain't what it is. And as Mawuli said, we got to think that 70 million people voted for the white supremacists in chief. I'm going to take that line for our sisters who testified for impeachment last week. You know, they voted for him, and it's clear. I went to Venezuela, and they called Donald Trump's government a Ku Klux Klan government. And to many people, it sounded funny, but they wasn't paying attention. What the Venezuelans were saying was correct. This was a Ku Klux Klan government with clear white supremacists in the Trump administration, as well as Trump himself, who gave lip service. It wasn't even what we call dog whistles. He was outright, you know, saying where he stood, you know, on the question of white supremacy. So even if somebody wasn't a card-carrying member of the Klan, if you voted for Donald Trump, you knew what you were voting for. You knew what side you were on. And so they chose that. 70 million people chose to vote that particular way. And we're not talking about, I don't even know what the count was of people who showed up in DC on January the 6th. So there's a clear and present danger for us. Many people say they might not run up in our communities, but now I don't think we should take them for granted and say they won't. But we definitely need to have a policy when we're roaming out willy-nilly in areas where they live. We need to at least, even if I'm going by myself, I need to let Mawuli, I need to let Baba Kwame, you know, I need to let Marty know where the hell I'm going. And they need to know when I get back. And they need to know to have a search team out for me if they ain't heard from me. Y'all feel what I'm saying? We to that point. We to that point. You know, we gotta, you know, I need to let Fred know where the hell I'm at. You know, we need to communicate with each other like that and develop that type of posture. And where we're having this conversation right here, Black men and women, youth are having these conversations all over the United States. And what the Malcolm X grassroots movement says is we need to have self-defense networks. We don't necessarily need, you know, back in the old days, you know, we used to say we need a vanguard, but it ain't just a small group that's going to protect all of us. We all have to have a mentality that we're going to, wherever we're at, if in our church, our lodge, our mosque, our temple, our, you know, in our neighborhood, we need to have some sort of security capacity, and we need to link up with each other. We need to coordinate. That's why one of the things Mawuli and I have discussed over the years is we need a united front, you know. And security, let me say this too, and I'm going to be quiet for a minute. It's not just about guns. Guns, you know, we need to be armed. You know, Black people are armed though. You know, these Negroes in my neighborhood at the, what do you call it, January 1st, they be popping off some stuff. They be scaring the hell out of me. I ain't gonna lie, because that's dangerous. But anyway, Black people are armed. We're not organized. We need to be organized. We need to be conscious. But the thing is for those of us, brothers and sisters, brothers like in this meeting, we to some degree are conscious. We need to all know our neighbors. You know what I mean? We need to have a relationship with people in our neighborhood. If your children go to school, you need to have a relationship with people at that school. You know, if you're part of a spiritual community, don't just run in and out. Have a relationship with the brothers and sisters in your spiritual community. We got to build that trust amongst each other. When in the book and beyond the book, what was the intelligence, the primary intelligence agency for brothers and sisters in the movement. Where do we get our information from? It was those Black domestics. We got to know those people going up in white people's homes, cleaning up their buildings, to give us and provide us that information. But if we are elitists and we don't talk to our people, we won't be able to develop those type of relationships. We got to be able to watch each other's back. I'm reminded of when I was a young man, I lived with one of the leaders of the revolutionary movement, his name, ancestor not well known, Mamadou Lumumba. And he was one of the leaders of the Revolutionary Action Movement, the African People's Party, and several other radical organizations. And once he was being targeted by the FBI, and one time the FBI was trying to surveil him, and it was like 3 or 4 cars, anytime he drove, would drive up and follow him. And one of the brothers in our neighborhood, when they observed that, they didn't know if we were aware, and we weren't. They dropped in our mailbox, brothers and sisters, the dogs are about to bite. And then, I wasn't being surveilled like that. I was just a young guy, and they were mostly surveilling Mamadou. He was an international leader. He had been involved in the Caribbean struggle, things of that nature. And so they came to me and they showed me, they took Polaroid pictures of the police surveilling him. And this is our neighbor, brother who was actually involved in the drug trade. And he gave us that information. But, because we had a relationship with him in the neighborhood. So we got to build strong bonds with people in our community, in our community organizations. We got to make everybody security conscious, but we also have to really build that love. Again, a quote from Chokwe, as I be quiet. Chokwe said, if you don't love the people, sooner or later, you'll betray the people. And so we got to, especially a group like this one here. I've never been formally a part of this group, but I feel like I'm a unofficial elder, at least one of the elders of this group, along with, I always say, Brother Jihad. I said, me and Brother Jihad, we're going to do a reality show one day. The real OGs of Atlanta.
Right. Y'all that gray beard gang. Y'all coming with that full beautiful gray, that wisdom.
Sante. So I definitely respect what y'all doing. I got love for the brothers here and everything y'all do, and just want to free the land. I'll be on for a little while. I got to go to my daughter and my son-in-law are returning from Benin, so I got to go later on, pick them up from the airport.
All right, we appreciate you, Baba, and you are a part of Black Man Lab. We're very clear that when you are linked in this chain, and it won't break here. So you've been linked many times. So you are an elder of Black Man Lab, and that's why we come to you in the way that we do. I want to, before we go to our other elder that has been supportive of both our family personally, but as well as the work, I want to bring in a brother who I've known for literally probably close to 40 years. This brother and I went to elementary school together on the south side of Chicago. And we were fortunate to reconnect here in the Atlanta area. Love this brother, just a stand-up brother. Anything that we've ever needed as far as security, brother has made himself available, has been willing to be a part of any security teams necessary, and has studied and is prepared himself to be in that capacity for us in the community. And so I want to bring on Brother Marcus Claiborne. He could talk about the different affiliations that that he's a part of and the training that he would share and encourage others as it relates to any firearms or self-defense? Brother Marcus.
Hey, thanks, Marty. Can you all hear me okay?
Sir.
So how do I follow that? Brother Umoja, right? That's a very tough act to follow. So I'll do the best I can here. First of all, thanks for having me. And I really appreciate your seeing me as somewhat of an authority or source on these things. I was actually surprised by it a little bit because I could have gotten you somebody so much better than me to speak to this, but we'll do the best that we can. So like Mawuli said, we go way back, and my entire concept of self-defense starts back where we go back to, and that's the South Side of Chicago. So growing up in Robert Taylor homes, I just from a very early age, I got immersed into a mindset of always being conscious about, how to survive out there. And so, over the years and as I've matured, back then when I was growing up, my concept of self-defense was something different. It was based upon growing up in the hood, and all the dangers, that we faced out there from day to day, just from getting robbed or, beat up or whatever. And it doesn't matter, what age, you're at, from a kid up to an adult, you're always vulnerable. But as I've matured and I've grown over the years, self-defense has kind of taken on a different feel and look. And when you place it in the context of what Brother Umoja just finished described, when you're talking at a social political level and a climate of what's going on in the country, my mind over the years has somewhat shifted into that realm. And it's kind of placed me in the space that I am in now with a particular organization, specifically National African American Gun Association. And Brother Umoja actually kind of touched on a few key things that we focus on. Number one is Mawuli kind of alluded to with providing security. Let me backtrack real quick. National African American Gun Association, or NAGA as it's known, NAAGA, was founded in 2015 by Philip Smith. It started out as just a meetup group, and I found them like on the meetup app, just looking for, people who look like me to shoot with. Because at that time, around 2015, it really started around 2010 after Barack Obama got elected, but you could just see the climate change in the country. And so I got to a point when I would go to the range, I just did not feel comfortable at the time. And I lived out in Douglasville. And so Douglasville back at that time did not look anything like it does now. So I was just uncomfortable going out there, and I didn't feel too good about the situation. So I started trying to find people that I could connect with and feel safe on the range with. That led me to this meetup group. And the first meeting I went to was just an informal thing at a range. I think it was Quick Shot. It's about maybe 30 of us. Well, fast forward 5 years later, we have tens of thousands of members. I think we're somewhere probably upwards of 60, 70,000 members nationwide with 80 plus chapters. It's grown just that much. And over the past, 4 years, it's been exponential growth. And so one of the things, some of the things that they do there is we tried to move more toward operating in that role that was described, like the Deacons of Defense, back in the day. And so, obviously when Mawuli and those guys, they have rallies that they need to support, and they want to have that security support, we come out, we go into our organization, and we, pull together people who are interested to go out and support that. And a couple of times I've been one of those individuals. Another thing that he spoke to,
and that's significant, Brother Marcus. Yeah. I just want to pause and publicly thank you, because the security that you all provided, particularly over this summer, I'm talking about security at the Decatur Square, where we had over 5,000 people march, the security as we traveled to Brunswick, Georgia, and security as we traveled down to Sylvania, Georgia, both for Ahmaud Arbery and Julian Lewis. Those were significant security details that you were a part of and provided security for. And so I just want to, thank you publicly and thank Naga. I'm a member as well because, you all have been solid. And I say that, and it's to no detriment of anyone else, but y'all not running around carrying guns in a uniform and like
exactly
a look.
Right.
People may feel some energy around that. What I felt and what my wife felt and what my sons felt was a level of security, knowing that you all were there, and focused on that and not on any kind of showmanship. So I just wanted to put that out there. But go ahead, brother. I don't want to jump in.
No, thanks for bringing it up, and that's all credit to the leadership. Okay. Yeah, that's all credit to the leadership of not only the national organization, but the chapter, specifically Kalimara and Douglas Jefferson, our president and vice president. So yeah, and it's all about just being smart. It's not about being out there thumping your chest and showing, because it's not necessary, right? Appreciate that, and we'll continue to support that and enhance that support wherever we can and wherever necessary. So another thing that he spoke to real quick I'd like to touch on is, and I try to incorporate this all the way down to my family unit here in my home. It comes down to knowing, not only being able to defend yourself, but knowing who you can trust, right? Who can you reach out to? And that's another thing that we're starting to implement in NAGA. It's called a NEST concept, which basically is emergency response. And it extends far beyond just self-defense, guns and armed self-defense, those types of things, but support from a medical perspective, from a financial perspective, a logistical perspective when things go wrong. So it's a much broader picture than just being able to put up physical security to protect yourself, your family, your property, right? Because there, in situations like now, there's a lot more things that come into play that you can be impacted by. You can have supply chains interrupted, for people start clowning and stuff, and you got, medications that don't make it to the pharmacy, or you can't get money, those types of things, or food, so you need to know who you can call on in specific situations, not only for, just protection, but for those other things as well. So, just in a nutshell, my affiliation with NAGA kind of brings a lot of those benefits, along with just getting the education and just moving together with a mass of people, in a training aspect and a disciplinary aspect to help reshape the narratives and redefine those paradigms. So that's my piece as far as the organization goes.
Appreciate you, brother. And how can people get involved with NAGA?
Absolutely. So you can always visit the website, which is naga.co. That's NAAGA.co. It is not a .com. It is a .co. Or you can find the organization on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, those types of places. But definitely start out at the website. Look up any chapters that may be in your area, and be on the lookout for meetings, which it's open to the public. They can join. Right now, we're still doing virtual meetings and those types of things during COVID-19. But those meetings are open for anybody to attend and become familiar with the organization and decide where they want to go from there. But it's a great organization. And again, we're looking to reshape those paradigms and change what the concept is about what is a responsible gun owner in America. Because that's not going away. The United States is what it is. And we need to make those adjustments mentally ourselves within our own community so that we can become more receptive to the benefits that taking on that paradigm can do for us.
Thank you, my brother. Appreciate you. And I do want to say this before I introduce Baba Kwame Kalimara. I know that sometimes people think that, when you say we need security, that it's all for show. When we were in Savannah, they were on rooftops. White supremacists were on rooftops. They were marching with rifles, automatic, long guns. I mean, they were out there. So never before had I seen that kind of open violent looking of a situation. And I'll tell you that having Naga there, and Brother Marcus in particular, was the reason that my wife felt, comfortable about us, pressing forward. And then there were a group of brothers, because our brother Francis Johnson is the chapter president of their chapter of Naga in Statesboro. And so they were there. So it was all a link up. So be very clear that we have to continue connecting one to another, and that the Sylvania experience changed how I thought about how, what security was about. And so I want to bring in Baba Kwame. And Baba Kwame is one of our elders in the community that has, been critical in our consciousness in our family. So during Camp Pumziko, which is run by Malcolm X Grassroots movement, our young people, he'd take them out, and he'd take them out there into that wilderness, and they had to hike. And my sons, when they went, they came back and they felt like they were really accomplished, because they were out on that long trek that Baba Kwame was leading and has led over many, many years. And so he has trained a lot of young people through the New African Scouts, through Camp Pumziko, and other formations. And so when you talk about preparedness, he probably could tell you what he has in his backpack right now that we all need to carry every day. He won't leave home without it. So I want you to be clear. And I'm not talking about a piece. I'm just talking about those things that will help in our community overall safety and security. So with that, Baba Kwame Kalimara, Malcolm X Grassroots Movement, NAPO, and a lot of other formations. Baba?
Well, thank you for this invitation, but I also wish to acknowledge all of your accolades and awards. I was listening to on the radio about all of your community service, and I just gotta say, take off my crown to you. And I know that the Bar Association, you've got awards named after you, so you're getting big and large in that sense. But the key thing is that you're humble, because it's all about the work and love of the people. But I also want to, thank you, Brother Marcus, for what you've been doing in terms of making certain that our brother is safe. And maybe that's the reason why Mawuli did not respond to my offer to give him some assistance when his life was being threatened. I texted him a message, said, well, if you need me, I'll be right there to protect your back. So maybe he figured the younger would be good, just leave me on the reserve list or whatever. But in any event, I've been doing camping, survival, and all that stuff since a youngster, and so in many respects it's in my blood. And I can probably talk about survival for hours and hours and hours in terms of what we need to do. But what I'm going to do is to shorten it up, just give folks just a few tidbits in terms of what I think is important. So when I take young people out to camp, one of the things that I give them is an acronym called survival. And I train them to let them know how important this acronym is. And S, for example, is size up the situation in total. So when I say size up the situation in total, it doesn't matter whether we're talking about where we are in relationship to the U.S. empire, where we are in Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, south side of Chicago, or whatever. The point is we have to size up the situation so that we know what we need to bring into play to make certain that we are alive, well, and thriving. One of the things that we do when we take folks out camping is we do what we call an AO, an area of operations. And what we do is we check out everything. For example, when we go out to Camp Pomzico, there have been trails and things of that nature that I've been using for years and years and years, but things and conditions change, and you need to be able to know. You need to know where the white supremacists are. You need to know where the police are. You need to know where the hospital is. You need to know the conditions and the people and the attitudes of the people. In my neighborhood in which I live right now, I know my neighbors. They know who I am. They have a sense of my body politic. They have a sense of my sense of spirituality. I give them assistance in coming around in terms of doing elections and things of that nature. I'm the one who gives them an analysis in terms of what things they should be voting on. And all that's important is, which is tied into what Bob Akinyele was talking about earlier. So when you say size up the situation, you size up your house, your family, yourself. When you say size up the situation total, that's what it means. The U in survival, undue haste makes waste. Undue haste makes waste. The reality is that you want to make certain that you are trim enough in anything to make certain that every measurement of time is important and valuable. Every sense of time is valuable. Remember where you are. Remember whose you are. If you are, for example, going into Henry County, which you see Purdue signs and all of this kind of stuff. Purdue obviously is one of Trump's people. You don't want to go out there and act like you're anti-Purdue. You want to be who you are, but the point is you don't want to create an antagonism to where you got to fight out and get out of a situation you don't need to be into because you're not prepared for it. So you remember where you are and who you are. You don't act a fool in the Klan rally because you know what time that is. So you remember where you are and whose you are. V stands for vanquish fear and panic. Hear me. Vanquish fear and panic. The reality is if you're fearful and you panic, you're not going to think logically. All of the training that you've had might all of a sudden just disappear. Even though, be very clear, training is important. When I say training is important, I'm saying just like you practice martial arts. Somebody throws a punch, you fend and do a counter punch. The point is you want things to operate naturally in terms of your response. But the point is that there are times when you have to be able to say, well, let me go ahead and play checkers as opposed to chess. So you have to make certain that you have the ability to be calm and think so you can plan what you need to do. The I stands for improvise. Be very clear. Improvising, what did they say? The mother of invention is creativity. I forget exactly what the phrase is, but the point is that improvisation is a part of creativity. I've been out with young people whom I've given them a project, and sometimes they do the projects better than the older children. It's because they use their kauma, their creativity, to figure out what they need to do. I can recall, I remember Mawuli was talking about, and I guess you, Mark, was talking about Chicago. When I lived in Chicago, I lived in Chicago for about 7 years, and while I was living in Chicago, I would go down to Mississippi. One time, this was, I think, 1978, I was working with Skip Robinson with the United League of Northern Mississippi, and went to Tupelo, Mississippi, and Klan was everywhere. I mean, all their regalia, all their guns, everything else. After we dealt with the rally and things of that nature, it was time to go back home. I remember there was a preacher by the name of Fredrick. We all got on this bus. Admittedly, I was packing. I should say that too. I was packing, but got on the bus, and which it gave me the notion that I need to make certain people tighten up their game. The preacher was driving. The bus was going all kind of ways. I said, you need to stop. Stopped. Bottom line is, got underneath there of the school bus, realized that somebody had tampered with the steering mechanism arms. And if this preacher had not been driving slow, we'd have been in a ditch and some serious trouble. But this is what I mean by improvise. I got underneath there, looked around, got some coat hanger, jerry-rigged that bad boy to be able to get us back to Oxford, Mississippi. That's what I mean by improvise. All right. The other part of survival is B, value living. Value living. If you don't care about your life, you know, it's gone. So you have to value your life. You got to value the people's lives, your family, and everybody else. If you do that, you're going to act a lot smarter. The A is for act like the natives, which goes back to what I said earlier in terms of remember where you are. When I say act like the natives, the point is you don't want to stand out and be a sore thumb so everybody can recognize you and pinpoint you. L is learn basic skills. And so give you an example. Water purification is important. People talk about having a compass. I teach math, reading, and compass coordination. I have a cell phone that has GPS on it. I have a GPS, but I also have a magnetic compass. But I also know star constellations and the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. The point is you need all of those basic skills. Those basic skills is what's going to help you. Because I argue that if you learn all these camping skills, it has urban application. When I go abroad, for example, I have what it's called a stirring pit. It purifies water with ultraviolet light. In 2 minutes, 16-ounce glasses of water is purified. You know, so you got to know all these skills. Brother Mawuli talked about, I got a bag. Well, I've got several bug-out bags. I've had bug-out bags before they had named it bug-out bags. And it's got lots of stuff in there. Everything from a life vest to, whatever. I think that if I'm going to go to my truck, I've got a gallon of gas in there. I've got first aid equipment. I got extra clothes, extra water, extra food. All that's in there. Even got tents and hammocks and things of that nature. In my house, what do I got? I've got 2 types of chainsaws. Hear me. Gas chainsaw, electric chainsaw. Dealing with the weapons. I got a bunch of 9mm, got a shotgun, also got knives, also got bow and arrow. All I'm saying is you got to think about all of it and think about the context in which you have to have all of this stuff. Got axes, shovels, tents. Want to go back for a second. Martial arts. Martial arts is important because you got to be clear that if you're not disciplined and don't know what to do, if somebody takes your weapon, you're in trouble. So I'm saying you got to think about, you got to look at this in total. We're dealing with COVID. I don't even see my year-old grandson without a mask on. I'm protecting him and I'm protecting myself. All I'm really trying to say is that when you think about this situation, you got to look at everything. I've got lanterns. I've got cook stoves. I've got mirrors, duct tape. Duct tape, you've seen some of those commercials about duct tape. Duct tape, believe it or not, is part of my first aid kit. It's easy to find out what kind of materials that you need because they're advertising. Generally, it's most of the white folks that are selling these survival gear. My position is don't, try to make the gear yourself. You don't want to give them money. You want to give our people money. I'm just going to leave it at that and leave it up for any questions that you might have. Like I said, I can talk about this stuff all day long. But there's one thing I want to say before I open up for any questions, how you want to deal with this. And I was talking about map reading and compass. And remember I said I knew the stars. Be very clear. If your battery is out, you don't have no power. If the sun is cloudy, you don't have no satellites. So if you don't have any of that other stuff, what you going to do? It's all about going back to the basics, even in terms of dealing with shelter. I can create a shelter without a tent. I can create a shelter with a poncho. I can create a shelter just by dealing with whatever elements are out there, and I've done it and still can do it. So all I'm saying is when you're dealing with survival, understand that your mental attitude is what's happening. So remember, survival, size of the situation, undue haste makes waste. Remember where you are and who you are, vanquish fear and panic, improvise, value living, act like the natives, and learn basic skills. Always that foundation is what's important. So I'm going to leave it at that because, like I said, I can go on and on and on and on, but, we got some other expertise in the room.
Thank you, Bob. I'm gonna turn it over to Marty for some questions. I did want to just, again, for those who are just tuning in, frame the conversation. We saw what happened on January 6th. We saw the capacity for the government to either allow itself to be overrun or to just be overrun by people who would fundamentally, they were on a seek and destroy mission. Let's not at all be mistaken. They were looking for folks. They were trying to kick in doors. They were a lynch mob, and they have that capacity, have demonstrated it before in our communities. And so we just want, again, this isn't a reactionary kind of effort. We want our people to know, have this information so that we can be equipped and prepared and be safe as we move and build community. Because when we say our lives matter, then we have to take the necessary actions to ensure that our lives are preserved. And that should nobody have no beef with that other than the folk who want to take your life. If they love your life, then they riding with you and like, oh yeah, let's get together. But if people are feeling some kind of way because we want to make sure that we're safe and that our children are safe and that our families are safe, then that speaks to maybe their own motives. So I just wanted to put that out there and turn it over to you, Marty. And I know we are about 24 minutes out, so I know these responses have to be truncated. So Marty, yeah. All yours, brother.
And thanks, man. But you led right into what I was going to talk about a little bit or bring up is, Baba AK talked about basically kind of the tenets of what community security has looked like in the past and kind of where we need to be going forward. And what I want to move to is we talk about all that stuff that you just talked about, Mawuli, the insurrection and everything that happened last week, or the week before last, and us being ready. What does that look like? How do we get there as a community? So we talked about being armed, of course. We talked about being organized. And the other piece that we talked about in some form or fashion is being networked, being able to get the message out, being able to have a kind of a community call. So what I want to pose to the panel is that question: how do we get there? What do you think that looks like for us to be able to get to a point where if I see something in my neighborhood, if I see something wherever I'm at, I have the ability to reach out and start a chain reaction of information, because I venture to say that is what's happened on the other side. They've wanted to create this insurrection, they were able to communicate that some kind of way, right? How do we do that in reverse? What are you all's thoughts on that? And Brother Marcus, my homeboy from Chicago, start with you on that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm mute there. Yeah, so one of the things, and again, it just goes back to what I was speaking to earlier, what we're doing with our NEST concept, which again stands for Naga Emergency Safety and Response Team, right? And so that encompasses a few different things. And one of the key things is communication, right? So we just basically implemented this app. I think it's called Zello or something like that. And it's a internet-based app, and it's like a walkie-talkie app that you can use to communicate between people, so that you're not having to use like just a standard cell phone. It's more like a walkie-talkie. But one of the other things that we're kind of moving into, and we actually have some members, and the great thing about being part of the chapter is that you do have different people that are involved in different aspects of like prepping. You know, we have some people that are hardcore preppers in the chapter. And so what they do is they share that knowledge amongst other people who might not have had any knowledge or interest in it whatsoever, you know, before, to get that exposure. So along with that, we have people that are licensed ham radio operators, right? And so that was one person, they chimed in on a forum and they presented the idea of, yeah, but do we want to rely upon, you know, this app when, if you look at what happened in Tennessee a few weeks ago, the guy blew up the vehicle in front of the AT&T routing network, and it disrupted communications. So how do you get around that? Well, if you have trained ham radio operators and you have some other means that's kind of off the grid, then you can, you know, you can circumvent being impacted by such a thing. So that's just one quick example of something that you can do, is just focus on communications and getting people trained in alternate forms of communication like ham radio.
Gotcha. Good stuff. I just think that it's one of those things that we operate so often. I think that's part of how white supremacy works, is getting us to be siloed, you know, and not being organized, and in this case, it's not even a matter of being super organized. It's just a matter of being in a position to communicate with somebody next to you to say, hey, here's what I see coming, right? And I just think that if we have some sort of method to do that, that's better. And maybe, Baba, Kwame, you have some add on to that as well. What are your thoughts?
I think, as Brother Marcus has indicated, that communication is extremely important. And I also use those walkie-talkies in terms of being able to, you know, to communicate with folks. But I also, with respect to the cell phone, I use text messaging. I use Signal, for example. And Signal is what I use with all my people who I'm tight with, who are politically conscious and spiritually conscious. And what we do is we're making certain that at least once every 3 days we're in communication with one another. And this is all the time. So it's not dealing with just this recent period. We've been doing this consistently because we understand how important it is. I think I heard Brother Marcus and Mawuli talking about being in communication with folks. And I know that Brother Baba Akinyele had talked about it. Whenever I leave the city, whenever I leave the state, whenever I leave the country, there are several people who know that I'm gone. So if I don't make it to my destination, they got to pull out the troops, so to speak. When I make my destination, I communicate with them. So the point is that everybody knows where I'm at who needs to know where I'm at. Because we're talking about this current situation right here, if the forces of the empire come, they know what to do too. What I mean by that, if the FBI comes knocking on your door, they know, call a lawyer. You know, call the lawyer and don't talk and leave it at that. And I know that when my father was still with us, he transitioned last year, and I knew the FBI, even when I lived in Chicago, the FBI was talking to all my little jobs and things of that nature. The point is that he even knew if the police came, any police authority, to go ahead and call Shoki Lumumba and go from there. And so many folks, I'm pretty certain, are going to be calling Mawuli now. But in any event, the other thing is that it's important for people in your community to know necessary protocols and who to meet up with. So I've got a number of people from First African to other places. If something jumps off, they know they're going to come to me. And they're probably coming to me primarily because I've been their trainer. But the point is that they are aware of a circle of leadership within the community. Who do you trust? Who do you think has the appropriate knowledge? Who do you think has the wisdom? So they have got people who are identified. So the same is true even in my subdivision here. But there's something else that I think that I should have said earlier, but I think I do want to say. This is in terms of if one has to evacuate. In my household, we know which car to use, which we're taking into consideration the number of people and the supplies we have to use in terms of getting out. Which car is going to accommodate, going to be most economical. All I'm saying is that we all ought to have a security evacuation plan. That's really it. And so I'll just leave it at that and wait for some more questions to trigger some more stuff that comes out of the brain.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate that. Joe, did you have a question that you wanted to ask, brother?
I did, and it's interesting because Bob, I kind of mentioned something in regards to just now, and I apologize if my internet is kind of in and out a little bit, guys. One of the things I wanted to ask, somebody implied it earlier, and I want to discuss that a little bit more. I want to say Baba AK mentioned it, but then Baba Kwame just kind of talked about it. There are a lot of assumptions that they're not going to come into the community, okay? And within my community, within my subdivision, a few of us brothers have had that conversation. I would like to hear you all thoughts. One, what are your thoughts? Will they or will they not? Number two, what is proper preparation for that? I heard what you said as far as evacuation plan, and I have looked at that for myself and my family. Most cost-effective vehicle that can travel furthest. Has space for people, has, ability to carry the weapons and so forth. But before evacuation, what happens before that? What's the proper thing to happen before that if they do come into the communities?
You were breaking up, so I couldn't hear everything that you had said.
If they do come into the communities, before evacuation, what would be best preparation to prepare for community activity?
If I understand you correctly, one has to have the appropriate equipment to protect the community, your household and your community. If I understand, where you're coming from. I think I mentioned I've got a number of 9mm. I think I mentioned I had a shotgun, but I also have a 30-06. And all this is good to use in terms of repelling an onslaught. But what is more important is to make certain that you have a community that knows how to use and when to use. And that's why they should be going to people like Marcus to be able to get that training on the range. Because there are many people who've got weapons but don't know how to use it. And if they know how to use it or maintain it or take care of it, they're going to end up injuring themselves or somebody else. And so that's where the training comes into play. And I know that, for example, here in Atlanta, there are places where you can specifically test out that kind of training. So I'm saying is that you have to test it out, but you also have to make certain that you and your subdivision know the logistics of your community. So I know the entrance to my subdivision. I know the exits to my subdivision. I know where my subdivision is in relationship to the expressway. What are the physical trails I have to go through to get to the freeway? In other words, the point is that you have to have a literal map and know the map of egress and regress. And I hope that sort of answers the question. Maybe Marcus could pick up on some more of that.
Yeah, I'd like to add on to that real quick, Doctor. So as he said, it's about surviving any assault, on your personal residence. And it starts in your house. Like everybody in my house, they know what weapon that they would need to grab, right? So you know the layout of your house better than you do. So where you would have people positioned, I would recommend to anyone to make sure that you have a long gun, right? As he spoke, this 30-06. But, if you take, say, like an AR-15 or AK-47, or those types of weapons, you have not only the longer range capability with the better stopping power, but you also have a much higher capacity. So that's the key thing as well, is you want to be able to repel multiple assailants that may be trying to overtake your home. And along with that, it goes back also to what I spoke to about knowing who you can trust and who you can call, having that communication in place. Because you may have other people that live nearby you that, like, say, people in my chapter, like I know specific individuals that live closest to me within minutes, that if something's going down, if I see something getting funky on this side, I'm calling them, whether it be on Signal, texting, or whatever, like, hey, this is going on over here. I need some support. And they can, work their magic and do what they need to do to get over here or get other people involved so that they can help out. So, two things there. Yep, definitely weapons and communication when it comes to those things that could be going down in your community. And also, make sure you have proper, ammunition stockpiles. Like, as much as I like to shoot, like this past year, I've been doing nothing but stockpiling ammo. Because, the ammo game has been like the crack game for what I've seen, man. People be lining up at the gun stores 5 a.m. just trying to get ammo. It's a shortage and it's sky high. So you have to take those things into account. Make sure you have proper stockpiles of ammo, because a weapon means nothing to you if you don't have ammunition to put through it, right? So, so I would just say, knowing your positions, understanding your armaments, and being able to reach out to people in a timely manner to get that assistance should those situations arise.
Marcus, what would you think would be a proper stockpile of ammo? Any specifics that you would think of?
Well, so I can tell you, like, for me, I got like 10,000 rounds of ammo right now, and that's just standard. Most people that are in my circle, they typically maintain. Because you can go to the range on a weekend, you can go through 500,000 rounds of ammo in one range trip. So yeah, but definitely we pretty much we try to have, like, if you have a long gun, about 1,000 rounds per caliber. Like, if you have a 9mm, you should probably have about 1,000 rounds of 9mm on hand. If you got a 223, which is AR-15, 5.56, 223 caliber, you should try to keep at least 1,000 rounds of ammo for any, major caliber that you have.
Thank you. That's really good.
Yeah.
That's a lot of firepower.
Yeah.
Man, like, don't come over here playing.
Right.
Let me just add one thing. I mentioned that I have a bunch of 9mm, and that's only because I'm trying to economize.
Right.
I hear you. We're at a point where we always go to habits, rituals, and disciplines. And I guess in this context, like, I know that you all to some degree have described kind of what your psychology is around self-defense, around preparedness, but what do you do, on a daily basis? Because sometimes, we always want our young people to understand that our success or our preparation isn't a one-time event. It's what we do on a daily basis, a weekly basis. It's, how we move. So if each of you could share kind of in the context of preparedness and self-defense, what do you do on a daily basis, and whether that, and as holistically as possible. I know that part of it is being mentally and spiritually prepared. So whatever it is, we just like to hear what your habits, rituals, and disciplines are, so that we can, again, so our young people can have an understanding of what they might consider doing to be, to reach the levels you all have in the areas of expertise that you have.
Okay, I guess it's me, the elder, going first, I guess. What I do daily is meditate and go into prayer. And through that process, I'm opening myself up to the voice of ultimate reality, the voice of my ancestors, both natural and personal, and I openly request for their guidance. I also include folks who are contemporary ancestors that we all know. I'll call on Shokwe Lumumba and Nubia Lumumba. I'll call on Queen Mother Moore and Amari Obatelli. I will call on Ella Baker. I'll call on all of those people who I revere, and we hear their names during libations, during Kwanzaa and other forms of celebration. I'm calling on those specific ancestors because they're warrior ancestors, and it is appropriate for me to call on those ancestors because we are in a state of war. And because I'm opening myself up to meditation and things of that nature, it helps me get the kind of insight I need to do in terms of making certain that holistically I'm doing everything to be strong enough to be prepared to engage anything that might come my way. I make certain that what I intake, both physically and intellectually and spiritually, is all consistent with that. I have a vitamin regime, which is just amp things up a little bit based on COVID. I take all the vitamins. I got the vitamin D. I take the zinc, the vitamin C, the A. Coconut oil, extra virgin olive oil, turmeric. I'm taking all of this stuff, and I'm perhaps even doubling up on most of this stuff because, as Dr. Matulu used to say to me when he was not behind the wall and locked down, he said, because of the stress that we have as a people, the vitamins and minerals and nutrients that we take in gets used up. And so I want to make certain that my immune system is real tight. And I also try to be creative in terms of my exercise. I teach Spelman College. What I do is I don't park on the Spelman lot. I park a half hour away, so I got my half hour walk into the campus. I got my half hour walk out of the campus. All I'm saying is I might not be going to the gym, but I'm finding creative ways to know that I need to make certain that this body that's been in political movement for over 50 years is going to continue to keep me going for another 20 or 30 or 40 years. I know I'm trying to look at beyond 100. And so if I want to be beyond 100 and be accessible and viable in terms of assisting our community and doing the work that we need to do in terms of self-determination and sovereignty, I got to make certain that this head is right, but I got to make certain this body is right, and I got to make certain that my spirit is right. So the other thing I should say too that I wanted to say is that I make certain that the language that I use also speaks to my spirituality and speaks to my body politic. Now, I might seem to be an extremist, but I don't curse, all right? I don't use negative terminology. I don't use the N word or the H word or all these other kind of stuff because I don't want that to be a part of my consciousness. So all I'm really trying to say is that I have to model the vision of a new people that I would like to see in real life.
Shay. Thank you, Baba. Brother Marcus.
Yeah, so I'll be real brief. We let the elder go ahead and go in a little bit, but I'll be very brief. For me, it's very simple. Every day that I wake up, I go through a moment of reflection, and I do this throughout the day multiple times a day. And for me, it all comes down to this. I tell myself, and I've actually said this to my family as well, because it means everything to me. And that is that I look at my life and where I am at this point, and I understand that I have a lot left to do. There's a lot that I still have to accomplish. I have a 16-year-old son, right? And, you know, where I come from, my parents are both gone now. They passed away at, I think, 66 and 67. And most people where I come from, looks like I went into mute. Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, so most people where I come from, in my experience, don't really make it into their 70s, right? So I look at where I am right now and I say, you know, I got a son that's 16. I set kind of waypoints for myself. And the thing that I live for right now is seeing my son into adulthood. So that drives everything that I do. And I tell my family every day that I walk out this door, I'm coming back home, right? Because I got to see my boy into adulthood, right? And even recently, you know, he was diagnosed as being on the ASD spectrum, the autism spectrum. He is mildly autistic, so he would have the Asperger's designation of a few years ago. And so that motivates me even more now, right? That I have to see him into adulthood and ensure that he can stand on his own 2 feet to navigate this world. And what does that mean for me? That means I gotta make sure when I walk out of that door that I make it back home. And it's just that simple. And that means that I have to operate with a high level of situational awareness with people out in that environment. And, you know, and that's just what it is. So along with that, I try to make sure that I stay in shape, you know, whether it be my road running or my, you know, bicycling and those types of things. So I try to stay in shape and just make sure I stay healthy so that I have the best chance of, you know, continuing on through this life and seeing my kids to where I hope to see them someday. And last thing I like to say, even when I'm running and working out and riding, I'm never alone. So I make sure that I'm straight for this crazy world out there. So.
Not Shay.
We appreciate you all. Baba AK had to jump off. This was an important one, part 2 of where do we go from here after we have witnessed. And I think as Baba AK mentioned, that many of us have known that we are and have been in a war. Now we're more conscious, and it's clear that it is undeniable. Our children who grew up, you know, very sheltered, some see what it is as clear as can be. And so we have to respond accordingly. And so we appreciate you all very much. And we like, Marty, can you close us out with I'm a link in this chain, brother?
Absolutely, Mawuli. We close out every session of Black Man Lab in the tradition of Queen Mother Njeri Algani of N'Cobra. She's an ancestor now, but every session that she had, that N'Cobra had, she closed out with I'm a link in this chain. Everybody locked their arms together and said the following. I'm a link in this chain.
I'm a link in this chain.
And it won't break here.
And it won't break here.
I'm a link in this chain.
I'm a link in this chain.
And it won't break here.
And it won't break here.
We are links in this chain.
We
are links in this chain.
And we won't break here.
And we won't break
here. Ashe. Brothers, thank you. Thank you so much for giving your time to the Black Man Lab. All of you all know that you are officially members of the Black Man Lab. And when we are back in person, as I say every week, whenever we have our panelists, we will want you to be in that space to share again all that you have to offer and wrap your hands around and your arms around our men in that space. So thank you so much, and we appreciate you again. Much love to everybody.
Peace, blessings, y'all. Thank you.
All right.